tell us why you are the right person to serve on Wilton's Planning and Zoning Commission.
Sure. I am the right person because I am really invested in the well-being of Wilton and the town's future. My family and I have lived here for almost 6 years, and this is our forever home. This is where my husband and I will live for the rest of our lives. So I really, really care about the future of the town, wanting to maintain what makes it, I'm sure many people have said, wanting to maintain what makes it special, but also with, a savvy look at the future, right? And I have a background in working in legal departments. So that attention to detail, knowing how to negotiate, knowing the ins and outs of different regulations are strengths for me. I also have been told, and I feel this is true, that I can bring a calming presence to tense situations. And I know that the town has seen that there have been many, many tense, unfortunately, tense situations on the various boards. And I would like to try to avoid that and, keep everything civil.
Let's touch a little bit on your professional experience. I mean, in terms of your knowledge of regulations and why specifically what you do and how that's going to be an asset to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Sure. I've spent my career working in scientific publishing, and the last 10 years I've been working in legal departments. So I worked at Springer Nature, which is a large global scientific publisher, for 20 years. And then this summer I switched jobs, and now I'm working for a scientific society for a nonprofit. I'm their legal program manager, so I'm working on contracts and guidelines and processes for their publications division and also managing their IP portfolio. They have about 900 trademarks and some copyrights and some patents. So just maintaining all of that. So that requires a great deal of attention to detail, also being able to multitask, being able to determine what is, the immediate priority, triaging what needs to be dealt with first, what things can wait until later. And also, when you work in a central service like legal, you deal with everyone, right? You deal across all departments in a business, so you need to be able to work well with lots of different people, lots of different personalities. And often when people are coming to legal, it's not for a great reason. So, like I said, providing that sense of calm, like, we can handle this, we're here to help you. I think something also pertinent is to planning and zoning is often legal people can perceive it as a department of no, that you're always just saying no to everything. And I definitely try to not project that. Like, obviously, we can't approve everything, but you're not there, and this is for P&Z, you're not there to just say no. You need to provide a reason or a no, but this is something that we could do alternatively. Because if you're just saying no all of the time, if people, they stop coming to you, they stop asking and sort of do things on their own, which is not what anyone wants.
Right. Say, do you think that Wilton's Planning and Zoning has a reputation for saying no, or do you think, on the converse, that maybe they've said no to the public in terms of participation? I mean, where does that no come into play, or the finding the alternatives for planning and zoning for someone on that commission?
I think you're right. I should have clarified. They are saying no mostly to the public when the public is able to comment on new developments. I find that their comments tend to be shut down. I mean, part of the problem is if the public is only able to comment once something has been approved. They're, you can't quite take what they're saying what can you do, right? With objections after something's already been approved. I they have definitely said yes to a lot of development applications. I mean, we all can see all of the development that's going on in Wilton. I'm not sure that the public has always been able to voice their concerns at a time when they would have any meaning.
You talked earlier about some of the, I guess, conflicts or challenges going on within some boards and commissions. Specifically, how do you think this P&Z has been doing?
I don't think that they have allowed the public to voice their concerns. Whether you want to hear what people have to say, especially if most of the comments are going to be negative, I understand that's difficult to have to listen to over and over again. But sometimes people just want to feel that their voice is heard, and you might not be able to implement the change that they're asking for, but just listening to them civilly. I know that there have been some raised voices at past meetings. I understand that everyone gets frustrated, but that shouldn't really be I wish that that wasn't happening. And it's not just P&Z. I think that that's occurring. I wish that it wasn't. And I know that it's easy for me to say that from this side, right? I'm not on P&Z and I don't know what that feels like to have the public perhaps angry at you frequently. But I do think that they could make more of an effort to hear public comment in a more constructive, calm way.
And toward that end, do you think they should be allowing the in-person option for meetings? Because it's all virtual now. People can't actually go in person to a meeting.
Yes, I think that they should. I know that they meet twice a month, so perhaps not every meeting, but why is it never? Could it not be quarterly, or could they? Now I don't know the history here. Did they stop doing that just because of the pandemic and never went back to it, or was there a reason, like people weren't behaving appropriately and they thought that they shouldn't be meeting in person? I'm not sure,
No, they
but
met in person always until the
uh,
pandemic. There were changes to the meeting room area where planning and zoning did meet. There were changes at both town hall and the town hall annex where the boards and commissions had their public meetings and hearings. And some have gone back to in-person, hybrid mostly, at using Comstock, because the meeting rooms at town hall have not gone back for meeting usage, but planning and zoning is one of them that has not gone back to any kind of hybrid or in-person meetings at all.
yeah, I do think they should at least some of the meetings, or at least try it out and see how that works, because I think from what I understand, the public can join the meetings and sort of sit through them and then find out that there isn't any time for public comment. I think when you're in person, that would be more difficult to do, right? So being in person, allows the public to voice comments more easily.
I guess the argument that's been posited is that for procedurally, because because developers need to make a presentation as one whole part and be heard as one whole part, so that legally when a decision gets made afterwards by the board, if there's an appeal or some sort of legal response, that that the developer's presentation has been presented as one whole complete package without any interruption from the public. That the public's commentary comes in at a certain point before a final decision is made. Is judging by your your experience with legal matters, do you think that that's something that can holds water? Do you think that's something that maybe there should be different procedures adopted that can still respect, I guess, quote unquote, the right of the developer, balancing that out with the public's right to be heard and participate in the process?
Yes, I mean, look, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not, able to give legal advice on that. But do I think that we should get legal advice on that? Definitely. That should be something that the town lawyer advises P&Z on. And also, I think sometimes we can feel like we exist in a bubble, but we don't. We can look at what our neighboring towns do, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe at least in New Canaan allows for public comment for some of these matters. So if other towns are doing that and allowing for public comment, and it's all working well, why couldn't we replicate that in Wilton? And you're right, maybe there's a procedure where the actual proposal, because it needs to be done all without interruption, happens just for P and Z. And then before any decisions are made, it's opened to public comment. I know what you're saying. They're worried that a developer, right? They're worried a developer, if their application is declined, could sue and say that, we were influenced by public comment. But I mean, I don't know exactly how that works, but in my understanding, there are already regulations and criteria. So either the plan meets those or it doesn't, right? I guess the gray area is in if it doesn't meet the current criteria, would we want to amend or, give an exception? So but I don't think we're legally obligated to. Again, this is just me thinking it out.
Right.
It would be something to get legal advice on, I
Right.
would think.
I hear you.
I'm not sure why they haven't.
I imagine that
Cost. I'm assuming it's cost, but yeah.
well, I imagine that they have, but just in terms of what kind of philosophy you will bring to it if you're on the commission.
Yeah.
So maybe we should get away from the procedural part of it and turn to some of the zoning and the planning part of it. I mean, in terms of, where you stand on how the town has been served by the current planning and zoning commission, and where you think that the town could do, if you're on the planning and zoning commission, where you would hope the town would move to in terms of your philosophy on planning and zoning, and what could be done better, or what the town's needs will be as you move forward.
And look, I've been canvassing, going door to door, and I have to say, when people are home and I tell them I'm running for planning and zoning, almost 100% of people have lots of thoughts about planning and zoning and all of the development that is going on in Wilton. There's a ton of development going on in Wilton, and I don't think necessarily that development is a bad thing, right? You don't want to be one of those towns that is having to close schools because there's a declining population. I wish that there was, and again, I don't mean to keep harping on this, but I think part of the problem and why people are so upset is that they had no idea that any of these proposals had been approved. And then all of a sudden, there's a humongous multifamily unit between our post office and our library. I think, again, if people are allowed to comment, at least they'll feel like their voice had been heard. I think that we need a better approach to affordable housing. Only requiring 10% when we're only at around 4. Obviously, we know that will never get us to the 10% threshold. Why can't we require more? I also think that we can do a better job with our downtown area. I know that the new development that's going, the Kimco one that's going in where the Starbucks is, that, if I understand correctly, is not going to have any retail and the bottom
Going to have some.
level is going to be a parking lot, right? A parking garage.
No, the Kimco one is going to, the back building won't have
The back
retail,
building won't.
but the front building definitely will have retail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's great. I mean, I think it's great that we are obviously people are liking the development, right? There's the one argument for it because it increases our tax base and it brings more people into Wilton. But are they then going to have to leave Wilton to go out to eat or to go to a bookstore or to go clothes shopping? I'd like to see us have more local businesses, a more vibrant downtown area. I have heard from other residents that they find the retail lease is too expensive or out of reach. I obviously I don't know that planning and zoning has much control over that, though I believe the town does own some of those buildings in the center of town.
The
I
town
believe.
owns the town green building,
Mhm.
and the town green, but the management is completely, they are in a contract with a management company that has total control over that. The town has no say over rents or any of that
Okay.
kind of management. I'm going to push back a little bit on the concept that the town that people didn't know, that they say they don't know. I mean, Good Morning Wilton covers development very regularly. There's lots of opportunity for people to know about these developments that are coming. And planning and zoning did talk about that property and development in that area for a very long time. I would agree in terms of, having the public learn more about how they can participate, the ways or
Mhm.
how much they can participate. But in terms of development, there is ample ways for them to be informed, whether it is all of the materials and information being available on the town website. They are. We write about it quite a lot. Are there other ways that planning and zoning can get people more involved in that process?
I think there are. I agree with you. Yes, Good Morning Wilton does a very good job of keeping us up to date on everything going on in town and all of the new developments. And that's a lot to keep track of. There are so many. I and yes, there is some personal responsibility to keep yourself informed, right? We're a community. You should be informed yourself about what's going on. I don't know how many people are going to the town website and looking at information. I think you're right. It is more reactionary. They see something going up that they could have known about, but for whatever reason, they were busy. They didn't. Then they see it. It's too late to stop it, and they're very angry. I do think that given all of the development and the general sentiment towards it in town, that people will pay closer attention in the future. But could planning and zoning do, I mean, I guess it's be careful what you ask for, but could they set up a Google form, right? A survey about what, not about specific developments, but could we go around and sort of canvass the town and ask, what would you like to see happen in Wilton? What are your top priorities for Wilton? What do you care about? What are you concerned about? Just something like that, because I know this next term of P and Z will be drafting I think it's a 2029 POCD, right? That's a great opportunity for P&Z to really interact with the community, not just with people who are coming to the meetings, because if I could guess, it's probably the same people who are coming to meetings, but really get out there into the community. There are so many town events that are going on. Couldn't P&Z have, a tent or a table at those, just trying to interact more with residents?
Just as a resident, what would you like to see if you could pick any amenity to have in town here? What would you like to see added into this town?
Probably would like to see greater development of our outdoor resources. I'm a runner, so I love the Norwalk River Valley Trail. I love Merwin Meadows. I I know people in the past have proposed a river walk. I've I would love if we could have a better connected. I mean, I live quite close to downtown Wilton. Not a safe way to get there on foot. I wish that we could, and I know the logistics of that are probably more complicated than I'm giving them credit for, but I do wish that areas of the town could be more easily connected, right? So we could encourage more outdoor activity. I also wish that in addition to affordable housing, we had more options for senior citizens who want to downsize. They've spent their whole life or a great portion of their life in Wilton and they want to downsize from their house. And right now, I'm not sure that Wilton has those options. The apartments that are being built are quite expensive.
And how about for a business? If you could have any business you want come into town, what would it be?
I'm an avid reader, so I would love a bookstore in town. You know, great bookstores in Ridgefield and in New Canaan. They seem so popular, and I wish that we had one in Wilton as well. The stores that we have in Wilton are great. I just wish that we had more of them, more restaurants as well.
Is there another town, that you admire for the way they handle planning and zoning?
I think Ridgefield does a really nice job with it. They have a really nice downtown area and their developments seem to be well located.
Talking about affordable housing,
Mhm.
uh, the housing committee was just disbanded by the Board of Selectmen. And I think the first select woman said, well, the Wilton Capital Planning Committee will be in charge of affordable housing. And then I think the chairman said, well, I don't think that's our purview. So it's kind of somehow kind of gotten lost in there. Who should be handling affordable housing? Is that the right group to be doing it?
No, I would have thought it would have been the housing committee. I'm surprised that that was disbanded. I mean, it's so important, isn't it? I hear from young families that would love to move here for our school system, but they just can't afford it. And the new apartments that are coming in are, I think, unaffordable for many young families. I look at what Westport is doing. If I understand correctly, they have set up their own trust for affordable housing where they're taking zoning application fees, putting it in a trust, and then themselves purchasing land in Westport and building their own affordable housing. So they have complete control over it. I have no idea if that's something that would be possible in Wilton, but that does seem like a great example to me of really embracing affordable. I don't know if this is true about Wilton, but there's that general idea of, oh, affordable housing, what does that mean? And I think, it's do we want the people who work in Wilton to live in Wilton, right? They're part of our community, right? That would be entry-level positions at ASML, teachers, police officers, those people who are part of our community and would want to be able to live in Wilton.
So there were about 900 new units approved in the last year or two. Some of them have already started to be built. Others are, in the works or coming online soon. Do you think that those multifamily apartments that you talked about that might be out of reach for a lot of people, if not those, then what other kind of development do you think would be appropriate for Wilton?
Well, I wouldn't say that I think the large multifamily units aren't appropriate for Wilton. I just wish a larger percentage of them would be affordable, or categorized as affordable. I know that that's up for interpretation, right? Um, but I think we don't only need those large, um, 100+ unit, or some of them 40+ unit buildings. It would be nice if there were some smaller, condos. I know that that's what's proposed, next to Village Market, but maybe more units like that. I know people are also concerned about such large units going in the center of town and what that's going to do, you know, traffic and just the general feel of the downtown.
Wilton Center has gone through that master planning process. What other area of Wilton do you think should be up for the next master plan? There was talk about Cannondale, but that's sort of been put on the back burner. What area should planning and zoning focus on for the next round of the master plan process?
Oh, that's a good question. I know, there's been so much development already on Route 7, though, I understand why Cannondale would make sense, something that's near public transportation. Uh, yeah, it's something that's near public transportation. We've sort of already done that by Wilton Station. I know there's a proposal, for the Baptist church, and something also by Wilton Commons. Yeah, I would say probably the Route 7 areas would be best placed for larger developments.
I mean, anything about signage relating to maybe economic development, maybe what the P and Z can do, I guess, directly to try to augment economic development. And part of that question too has to do with parking, I guess, too.
Yes, definitely has to do with parking and, you know, having having the downtown area easily accessible, right? Because people, I think, tend to go right by it on Route 7 on their way from, one place to another. I think that P and Z, I mean, on a really basic level, and I'm sorry if this is really simplifying it, but when we have those larger developments coming into town, really paying attention to the retail space that they are developing to make sure that it would be attractive and amenable to businesses, right? I do think that there is a lot of foot traffic in our town center, and that's only going to increase, right, with the apartments that are going up. And I think that is going to hopefully make it a more attractive location for businesses, for retail.
Parking I want to just kind of narrow in on that subject because parking has been part of the discussion. I've already seen, whether it's one business owner or the Wilton Library, they've already put up signs that say parking is for patrons or customers only. So, what do you think planning and zoning needs to do in terms of encouraging Wilton Center to be more walkable or to help people with the parking situation that's going to come as more developments get put up and more people do come live downtown? What do you think that planning and zoning should do about parking?
Well, I think the town has done a nice job of connecting the train, like making the train station walkable to Wilton downtown with that bridge. That's been fantastic. I think planning and zoning, when considering new developments, I mean, I don't know how they decide on how many parking spots they do per unit, but you always have to consider that people have visitors. And if you have, 150 unit space, how are you can't only provide one parking spot per unit. It's a real question because I wonder if we've sort of already gone past that point. And now once they start leasing out these new units, traffic is going to be definitely increased. And at the same time, we're saying we want more foot traffic, more pedestrians. And then you've got all of the traffic. I'm thinking about it from as a mom, lots of kids on bikes going down the sidewalk, which is fantastic. And you get a little nervous when there's going to be such an increase in the number of cars, speeding up and down that street. Yeah.
You want to give us your 30-second elevator pitch for why voters should vote for you for planning and zoning?
Sure. My 30-second pitch is that I am enthusiastic and energetic and very excited about this opportunity and getting to make decisions and be involved in decisions that are really going to be felt by the community to make a difference in their lives and the future of this town. And I hope that we're able to make really thoughtful, sensitive decisions that will benefit this town and not just sort of quick fixes or um, decisions that were maybe forced on us because we didn't do something correctly or we missed something. I Yeah, and I really I think this sometimes gets I know I've gone over 30 seconds, but I think sometimes this gets downplayed, but just being somebody who is able to get along with lots of people, because that's what the job is, right? You have to work together, not just on planning and zoning, but with the other boards in town as well. So, being very willing to do that, I think makes me a strong candidate.
Jessica, thank you so much. It was really good to talk to you.